News now, and there is only one story they are talking about in the United States. That is, of course, the $700 billion U.S. financial bailout package. Wei Su joins us now from the business desk. Wei Su has just made it through the Senate, but possibly its biggest hurdle yet is going to be through the House of Representatives.
Yes, and that's on Friday. We will see what happens then. But for now, here's the latest upgrade. Now, following, as James said, Monday's spectacular failure in the House of Representatives to pass this bill, the financial bailout has now found a second life. Senators loaded the rescue bill with tax breaks and other sweeteners before passing it by a wide margin, 74 to 25. Meanwhile, in the House, leaders are working feverishly to convert enough opponents to push that bill through by Friday. The rescue package gives the government a free pass to buy up bad mortgage-related securities and other devalued assets held by troubled financial institutions.
But if you don't want to be...
Well, let's look at what's happening on Wall Street. U.S. stocks fell on Wednesday as tight credit markets and increasingly dismal economic data kept investors very much on edge. Trading was volatile a day after Wall Street surprisingly gave its best daily performance in 6 years. More details, here's Reuters correspondent in New York.
Credit markets showed little sign of movement on Wednesday as the U.S. Senate prepared to vote on the $700 billion bank rescue plan. Banks still refuse to lend money even to one another, with the industry paralyzed by toxic mortgage-related assets. Investors hope the bailout plan will help get credit markets and the economy moving again. Hugh Johnson is Chief Investment Officer at Johnson Ellington Advisors.
They know that companies are not getting the credit they need to operate, to meet payrolls and to pay their bills, to support their inventories. And they know that's really tough on companies. It means that those companies are going to probably have to cut production and lay people off.
The credit crunch put the squeeze on auto sales in September. Ford and Chrysler saw domestic sales drop a third from a year ago. And even the Japanese automakers did not fare much better. General Motors limited the damage by lifting incentives. Manufacturing activity saw a sharper than expected setback last month, adding to worries about the health of the economy and the labor market. Meantime, a report showing a drop in private employment bolstered fears ahead of Friday's key jobs report. Billionaire investor Warren Buffett is buying a $3 billion stake in General Electric, describing GE as, quote, the symbol of American business to the world. GE was forced to lower earnings projections last week due to weakness at its finance arm, GE Capital. On Wall Street, investors were skittish ahead of the Senate vote, with the Nasdaq down 1%. And in Europe, the head of Deutsche Bank, Europe's biggest bank, urged Europe to follow America if the bailout plan gets approved. Stocks in Germany finished lower, but finished higher in France and the UK. Conway Gittins, Reuters.
Now that's a little out of date. As we just reported, the bailout plan has been passed by the U.S. Senate. Now it's just a month to go to the U.S. presidential elections, and with the economy now lurching from crisis to crisis, voters will be looking very hard at how candidates propose to turn the economy around and bring back confidence to markets and investors. Speaking before the Senate approved that revised bailout bill, presidential candidates Barack Obama and John McCain, they called for bipartisan cooperation. Sung Siwei with this story.
You said we knew where the weapons of mass destruction...
They are rivals in a U.S. presidential election, but during this time of crisis in the global credit market, they stand united on one issue. Ahead of the Senate's vote on the revised financial bailout bill on Wednesday evening, Barack Obama and John McCain stopped in swing states along their way to Washington. Both men declared lawmakers must set aside party loyalty to get behind the measure. In Wisconsin, Obama said although the plan was not perfect, it was imperative it was passed to prevent a crisis from turning into a catastrophe.
To the Democrats and Republicans who oppose this plan, I say that this: step up to the plate. Do what's right for the country, even if it's not popular, because the time to act is now.
In Missouri, McCain called for bipartisan cooperation to pass the bailout bill, citing a precedent from 7 years ago.
Following September 11th, our national leaders came together at a time of crisis.
Now with this measure, we have another chance to come together to prove that Washington is once again capable of leading this country.
But former President Bill Clinton insisted only Obama knows what it will take to get the U.S. back on track. Clinton campaigned for Obama in the largest swing state, Florida, on Wednesday. It was Clinton's first campaign appearance for Obama since he was officially nominated at the Democratic Convention in August.
Here's why you ought to be for Barack Obama. Number one, he's got the right philosophy. He knows you have to grow an economy from the ground up, not from the top down. Number two, he's got better answers for the economy, for energy, for health care, for education.
The most recent new poll has given Obama supporters reason to be optimistic. A Quinnipiac University survey over the weekend showed Obama pulling ahead of McCain in the key swing states of Ohio, Florida, and Pennsylvania. No president since 1960 has been elected without winning 2 of those 3 states. Zheng Sui, CCTV.
Now, on the other side of the Atlantic, the European Commission says it's doing all it can to stabilize European banks. It's also stressing that EU state aid rules must be respected and that it wants member states to take coordinated action to tackle the impact of this current crisis. Mark Dry with more on this.
In light of the global financial crisis, several European banks have been faced with rapidly assembled rescue packages. Rebuffing French calls to reconsider EU competition regulations, European Competition Commissioner Neelie Kroes, whose job is to approve member state aid to ailing banks, said the entire EU executive agreed that the existing state aid rules were up to the task of coping with the crisis. She stressed the state aid rules were part of the solution, not part of the problem.
We are acting to approve very quickly rescue measures for banks in order to protect financial stability and avoid spillovers on the rest of the economy.
The Commission's President, José Manuel Barroso, said the 27-nation bloc needed to act together. He's urging stronger European financial supervision and greater consistency in national deposit guarantee schemes to stabilize the financial system. He also said the rules on the evaluation of complex assets must be refined and the transparency of executive pay should increase.
We are in a situation where only with a coordinated action from all those involved we can restore confidence in the markets.
The European Commission has asked all member states not to take any unilateral action to deal with the financial crisis. It's calling on them to communicate with the Commission in a timely manner to ensure the effectiveness of their financial rescue programs. Mark Dreyer, CCTV.
Meanwhile, French Finance Minister, that's Christine Lagarde, has denied reports that the country is mulling a 300 billion euro, that's $429 billion US dollars, a rescue package for European banks. She says no such package is planned and that figure was entirely made up. European officials promised on Wednesday to speed up procedures to approve bailouts for banks. Preparations have begun for Europe's 4 big economies, these are Britain, France, Germany and Italy, to hold an emergency summit within the next few days. French President Nicolas Sarkozy says he wants to discuss reform of the financial system with other European members of the group of 8 leading industrialized countries. President of the European Central Bank, that's Jean-Claude Trichet, and Chairman of the Euro Area Finance Ministers, that's Jean-Claude Juncker, are both likely to be at this gathering.